I think another thing people don't tell you is when you get to the place that you've been working for so long, and you've worked hard, and finally you're there at the place, and now you land in that place, and instead of being like, yes, okay, I'm ready, you all of a sudden lose your confidence, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I am not equipped, I am not good enough, I'm going to be found out. I'm a fraud, basically.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Things No One Tells You, T-Naughty for short. So my background looks a little bit different, a lot different, because I am at my hotel somewhere in the Midwest. I'm working on a work project, a new project I can't wait to tell you about. But we had to call an audible and just make it work, which I love because the guest on this week's episode is a good friend of mine who often is on the road, working from the road. She's my friend, actress Stephanie Szostak. And she also, if you didn't know, was a collegiate golfer at William & Mary. So first, I'm going to start with the joke of the day, which is, why did the golfer bring 2 pairs of pants? In case she had a hole-in-one. Do you like my makeshift loose leaf tablet? Anyway, all right. So here is what I have talked to Stephanie a lot before, had her in different podcast conversations. She is just so amazing. The work that she's done is well noted. She started acting actually later in life. She's been in some awesome movies and series, Devil Wears Prada, Dinner for Schmucks, a lot more, but also A Million Little Things on ABC. I loved her in the role of Delilah. But anyway, she is just so awesome and someone that I've come to lean on a lot for work advice, mom life advice. We talk a lot about the balance of it all. And she certainly is inspiring with some of the tough decisions that she's made and the way that she looks at things. So there's that. But Stephanie has a new movie out. She has a new film. It's called Soul on Fire. It's based on the story of John O'Leary, who as a boy suffered severe burns, and his life journey after. She plays John's mother, and hearing her explanation of how the role came to be, also how she got ready for the role. Oh my gosh, it's so fascinating. But also, Stephanie's just a masterful storyteller. So she weaves it all together, and there's just so much always to learn from her. So I hope you love this conversation. I can't wait for you to see Soul on Fire, which comes out October 10th. We're going to give you all the information about where to find more info on Stephanie in our show notes. But here it is, my good friend, Stephanie Szostak. Stephanie, it is always so great to see you. And I love that it's sort of a rainy day where we both are in Connecticut. These days are so cozy. What is your vibe right now? What have you got going on?
I'm excited that it's raining because we haven't had rain in so long, and I've lost trees, and I replanted a tree, and I'm like, oh, good. I don't have to water it.
Oh, I love it. It is so funny. It's been quite a while. And I'm like, oh, you do forget how it sort of gives you that free pass to just chill or light a candle or just be cozy, you know?
Yes, you don't have to go out and do your steps.
I know. Yes, right. Exactly. There's no shoulds on a day with rain. Okay. So I have shared a little bit about how we know one another, and I obviously we've done a lot of different types of work together, which has been so much fun. Normally in Things No One Tells You, we sort of wait. It kind of reveals itself what the thing no one told the guest or the guests along their journey. But I loved that you really out of the gate were thoughtful about this and came to the table ready to go. So can you share what your Thing No One Tells You is that we really are going to have fun diving into today?
So the thing is, no one tells you that tough love can be brutal in the moment, but it can plant seeds that you don't see until years later, seeds of growth that you don't see until years later.
I love that. How did you come up with that?
Well, I did, I'm part of a new movie that's going to come out, as you know, that's called Soul on Fire, and it's coming out October 10th in theaters. But it's a true story. And the character that I play a mom. I'll tell you the story, but I play a mom who is the most loving mother. Her son got burnt 100% of his body from the neck down. And when he comes back from 5 months in the hospital and his fingers are amputated and he can't walk, she gives him a huge amount of love, of course, but also some tough love. And specifically, that is letting him be at the dinner table trying to figure out how to use a fork by himself and not letting his sibling help him. And a little later, asking the piano teacher to come back to their house for his piano lesson. And when he hears that knock on the door and he hears the voice of Mrs. Whitaker, who's his piano teacher, he's like, Mom, what is she doing here? You know, he has no fingers. He's not going to school because he can't walk yet. And she says to him, because it's time for your piano lesson. And I don't know, you know, you're not different than your brothers and sisters. My kids take piano lesson and you're going to take piano lessons. And
that gives me such chills.
I know. And I remember reading, you know, I read, this is the story of John O'Leary. This is whose story it is. John O'Leary.
Based on a true story. John O'Leary is the man.
Is the man.
Yep.
Today, he is a podcast host of a podcast called Living Inspired. He wrote his memoir that is called On Fire. It's a beautiful book that I read years ago. And he says, in that moment, I hated my mom. But now John also he's a inspirational speaker. And when he speaks, you know, he lets you do a little bit of reflection during his speech. And he invariably goes to a piano that's on stage and he plays during his and it's pretty amazing because his mom made him do that.
That is so just incredible. Okay, so the movie is called Soul on Fire. It comes out October 10th. And I really also want to chat with you about the thing no one tells you about tough love as it pertains to sports and your journey and your career, et cetera, and also like parenting that we're sort of hitting on in the film. But can you take us back to the beginning of this film and how it came to be and sort of your involvement with this project?
Yes. So about 15 years ago, my husband went to not a retreat, but an event with his company, and they had a speaker there. And the speaker was John O'Leary. And Britt, my husband, came home with a DVD and he was like, we have got to watch this. This man's story is unbelievable. And we sat in the living room with my son, who at the time was Max, who was probably 6, 7. And we watched, it was a segment on MLB Network about John's life because, so he got burnt. And when he was in the hospital, Jack Buck, the announcer for the Cardinals, this story took place in St. Louis. You'll enjoy this because you're in the world of
Jack
sports.
Buck, I mean, the legendary sportscaster who was in St. Louis. Yes.
Yes. So we heard about the story of little John, who was not supposed to make it. And he left a benefit and went to the hospital to visit John, who happened to be a huge Cardinals fan. And so he couldn't see anything, but he heard the voice of Jack Buck and he was like, am I dreaming? But then Jack Buck came back again and again. And then players from the team came. So anyway, this segment was, you can look it up on YouTube, John O'Leary, MLB Network. And so we're watching this and I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm crying watching it. And then years later, John writes his memoir. We read his memoir. Then he starts his podcast. We listen to his podcast. It's beautiful. And then I had the show A Million Little Things that was coming out. And so I had a publicist and my husband was like, well, why don't you ask John O'Leary if he'll have you on his podcast? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a good idea. So I wrote him a letter, how I got to know him. And I had never done a podcast ever.
And you had never met him because this was all just a story that was told from Britt because Britt was so moved.
And then we became fans, you know, of his story and his message of really living with wonder. And, you know, your world can be turned upside down and your reality changed forever. And what helps you go forward? For him, it was obviously a lot of things, community, faith, family, all of that. Anyways, he said yes. I got on his podcast. This was 7 years ago. And then 2 years ago, when his movie, you know, was about to start in production, he texted me and he said, hey, do you know of a cute brunette who could play my mom? And I was like, John, are you asking me to play your mom? Me, a Frenchie, play your mom from St. Louis? Do you have that much, faith in me? And so that's how the role came to me. It was amazing.
Wait. I feel like I know you shared that story, but maybe not in that detail. That is just a bananas.
Mm-hmm.
That is bananas full circle, like amazing. I could cry.
It
What?
really is. It really is because also, he
Oh
didn't
my
have me
God.
audition, nothing. He just really convinced the producers. He was like, this is who I want to play my mom.
And you, like, and this all just came together so completely organically because he spoke. I mean, that just everything about it, I love it. It is
Yes.
so just like meant to be. So when he called you and said that, what was going through your mind?
Oh my gosh. Uh, Amazing. What an honor. Holy shit. How I have to, this is the first time I've ever played somebody real. How do I do that? How do I begin to start speaking? Like, I need to find a dialect coach, blah, blah, but it was fear, excitement, gratitude, all of it.
So, wow. So what goes into that playing a real person? I would never even think that an actor thinks about that, but that's the first thing you said. And I get that, right? What is that like?
Yes, you immerse yourself in who this person is. So it was finding all the video that I could find of her, her on John's podcast, reading her book. She wrote the book before John wrote his book, Overwhelming Odds. Her and her husband wrote that book. So rereading that book, I had actually read it. Britt brought it home with that DVD too, and trying to really see how her and I connect. And then I found an amazing dialect coach who helped me. I didn't want to imitate. I didn't want to imitate her voice, but I wanted to channel her and her way. It's so interesting how we speak, not just our accent, but how our mouth moves says so much about our personality. And so I spent hours watching her on slow motion on YouTube without sound, just
Really?
seeing how her mouth moves. Yeah.
So how does her mouth move? Can you do it?
Um, just there's something like
It's like
this, and it's John, and it is a story of
it's like
faith. And
intentional.
yes, it's very intentional and poised, and I'm doing a bad job now, but determination. She has such clarity in what she says, and she also, her eyes are piercing when she's talking to somebody. She's right there with you in the moment. She's a lot stronger than I am, I think. I'm a little bit like, whoo, a little bit all over the place. She's just, whoo, but she's also very spontaneous. Anyway, this is what an actor does.
How hard is it to get the dialect down?
It was a lot of work. I had a great teacher who really helped me every day. I practiced. She actually told me, you work too hard. We're going to do 10 minutes a day. That's all you need to do. 10 minutes a day. And, I did it every day. I'm very conscientious like this. And then by the time I got on set, I warmed up in the morning, and then it was, um, trying to let go. And she also told me something amazing that we can all use, not just with dialect, but if we're working on something. She said, you're going to hear yourself slip at times on set. And I want you to say to yourself, when you hear yourself slip, grace. Have grace for yourself. She said, you're not going to judge yourself. You're not going to be like, oh God, da, da, da. You're just going to say grace. And then you're going to do it again. I've kept that for other things too.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Um, so what did you knew the story so well going into that? What did it reveal, the research and the homework that you did getting ready to play her? Like, how did that show up for you?
So I met her when I got to St. Louis before we started shooting. John organized a meeting, a little lunch with Susan O'Leary. And I asked her, we right away dove in. She was so generous and open. And I asked her, can you share with me your earliest memory from early childhood. And I had read this in an acting book, that it's a really great way to connect to your character, like, because it's probably something powerful, right? It could be joyful, it could be, but it will tell you, like, what is that one thing that is your first memory? And she said,
Great practice. I'm trying to think about it. Mine now,
yeah, you can do self-analysis. But
Yeah.
she said it was her in really being young at home with her sister playing, and their grandmother lived with them. And she remembered her grandmother saying a lot, "Susie, come help me in the bath." And she'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to stop playing, but I'm going to come and help my grandma in the bath, you know." And so she's telling me this story, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, her earliest memory is that of being a caregiver. And then she had to be her son's caregiver when he spent 5 months in the hospital, and all the years afterwards when he was at home recovering. And then her husband had Parkinson's disease for 30 years. So I thought, wow, that's quite amazing. She's, her earliest memories of being a caregiver, and this is how she's shown up in the world for people, is being a caregiver, a giver.
Yeah. Holy cow. So have you seen the movie?
Pretty close. Yeah, they were still tweaking it. I'll share one other thing about kind of tough love.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting because I asked my son, when yesterday as we were preparing for this podcast, I was like, do you think I've given you tough love at times? And he said, yes, at times, but it only works because most of the time it's support and validation and listening. And so he said, so the times that you've given me tough love have made me pause and be like, okay, I need to listen to this. But all that to say that she's the most loving mother there can be. But when her son, that first night, he got wheeled into surgery, and the doctor just told her, your son has half a chance, half a percent of surviving this night. And so she hears that from the doctor. So she runs to the gurney and to tell her son that she loves him. And he says, I know.
Oh, God.
He says, Mom, am I gonna die? And she says to him, I don't know, John, do you want to die? And later she explained that because it's such a surprising thing to say, right? As your mother, what do we not? No, you're not. You're going to be fine, and I love you. Like that's what we would say. And she described later. She said that sentence came to me. It was like in her words, the word of the Spirit that just came through me. And he said to her, "No, no, I don't want to die." And then she said, and this is not in the movie, but it's what she actually said in real life. She said, well, then you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to run faster than you've ever run on that soccer field. And you're going to hold God's hand, and Daddy and I are going to be right by you. But like I love that because she didn't give him comfort. She gave him agency in that moment. And she told him, you know how to fight, and you're going to fight even harder than this. She gave him a game plan, a roadmap to what he was about to do.
And has he mentioned what that meant to him? What does he recall or say about that?
Yeah, he says, my mom, he says, my story is not about me. It's about all the people who have come to help me believe in myself, whether his mom, the nurses who helped him try to walk again when people said you wouldn't be able to walk, or when it was so painful, the baseball team, Jack Buck, the whole community. And his wife later in college. that.
I do feel like it's the concept of tough love is, especially in parenting, is hard. It is like,
Oh,
but you're right. It's like those moments that you wonder, like, where did she find those words? Right? Like
yes.
you just,
You don't
but
wanna. I know for me, I'm as a mother, I mean, I think it's instinctive. We don't wanna see our kids struggle. We wanna solve it for them, and then
yeah.
at times I had a babysitter, who I learned from, who was unbelievable. Instead of sending the kids in timeout, she would, send them to their room, and she would say, "You have to write an essay." And in this essay, like when Max was 10, you have to tell me what happened and why it happened and what you're going to do, what you learned and what you're going to do differently next time. And they were,
I think that's genius.
right. But they were like,
I've had it.
"Ugh." It was tough love. But then,
Did Max do it?
yes. And Max said, sometimes I would just, mail it in and she'd be like, no, 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 that's not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I was thinking about it when thinking about like what we were talking about. And I was thinking, because like when you're talking about how he did this for all the people around him, and, it's interesting when you think about like, who are your mentors and who have you learned from? And I think everyone's path with that is so different. Like some people have one real constant person, whether it's a professional person or family. And I was thinking back to I was like, my mom is really good at tough love, but only
Mm.
like, it's funny how when you think about it on the other side, I think I'm wired a bit like my son. Unfortunately, I think we're very big empaths. And I say unfortunately just because I think sometimes that becomes weird and debilitating, but it is ultimately a very nice thing.
Mhm.
But I have found that I really respond when someone who I go to that is my comfort zone flips the switch and is like, you can do this, and it's exactly what you're talking about. But I remember when we were leaving, this is totally different from your movie topic, but we were moving from Washington, D.C. Me and Melvin were getting married. We were coming to Connecticut, and we made that move because both of us had job opportunities and we got them at the same time, which was really rare in our industry. Mine was up the road in Bristol at ESPN. Melvin's was at MSNBC. So we made it work geographically where we are. And I remember right before we left, I was like, what have we done? Like, I was really excited about the opportunity, but I was so sad at my core because I was leaving my home. I had moved back and was working this awesome job in the city where I basically grew up. I was around all my friends. It was just this real warm, fuzzy, awesome experience. And my mom, the morning we moved, I'm not going to cry when I say this. She texts me. I almost went downstairs to ask her because she's visiting, and I was like, we're both going to be crying on the floor. I'm not going to do that. She sends me this text message video, and we had probably already left. And she was like, you get in that car and you just embrace every moment of this. You're so excited. This is going to be the best thing. And I knew this, I'm crying. I knew she didn't feel that way because she was so sad,
Yeah.
which is probably how John's mom felt, obviously, in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like very different stories. But I was just like, how awesome is that? Well, this is a disaster.
No, no, I hear you. I'm also an empath. So I hear you. And I think I have girlfriends like this
Yeah.
that I have two girlfriends who I met in college, and we're all mothers. We know everything about one another. We don't speak that often, actually.
Yeah.
But when we
Yeah.
do speak, but we call each other when we're in a mess. And when, it's like, and when you feel like you just can't get it right and you can't figure it, it's the safe person where you can go when you, like you're saying, you're in that sort of
Yes.
spiral and you're like, da, da, da. And these girlfriends are like, okay, yeah, okay, fine. But that's enough. Now this is the thing. And it's like, get your head out of your butt and this is what you're going to do. And it gives you a little bit of a, okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you, coach. It gives you clarity and a way forward.
Yeah. So that's why I really, really love the topic. And I think that it is funny, almost comical when I attempt to do that with my son, but he really responds to it, right?
Does. So
So when
what
you're
do you
like,
do? You say you're
um,
feeling like she told you what you're feeling. She said, "You're excited and you're going to be and you're
Yeah.
grateful in
She
the
gave me
present tense."
agency.
Yeah.
It's what you said. She gave me agency. And I think you're right. It's like when you do it effectively, you're giving the other person the agency. And the only example I have of like recently with my son is the kid who, no matter what year in school it is, I drop him off at school. He turns around 5 times. Bye, mom. Like,
Oh,
meanwhile, my daughter, who, can't get and doesn't even look back anymore. She's only 8. She's just like, peace.
that was my first
He,
and second too. Second is like, "Can you not come to the bus with me?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so for whatever reason now Della's like, okay, bye, bye. So there was one day where Mondays sometimes are a struggle for him where it's like he's going back into that routine. And whatever was going on this day, I was just like, you've got this. You got to get it. You go up to that school. You walk in there like you feel like LeBron James on the basketball court. I was like, I want to see that kid that played in that game last weekend. You are that kid. And you can, like, I'm not saying that it was the right thing that I was saying, but he was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm just like, all right, I don't know. Anyway,
It's amazing. It's such a good, because you don't think about it, but it's like, okay, you give your person the self-talk in the present tense of the things that they're like, yeah, I'm able to do that. I've done that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're giving them the right voice in their head.
right. You're
Yeah.
connecting with them in a way. And I think, yeah, that's just so powerful. So, okay, but you've also, I know, had the tough love examples too in other areas. And I would love to just hear about that. Like, and I don't know that a lot of folks that are watching or listening to this know that you started acting at 29.
Yes.
I love that story. Yeah, can you just share what that was like? Because I think it's really awesome and such a great example for people out there that, you follow the seed of what the passion is and you ask the questions and you do the things, and that's oftentimes what can really lead to really amazing doors opening.
Yeah, and I actually didn't have a passion. I had never
Mhm.
taken an acting class. So I like what you say. Just follow almost those little doors that open and say yes to things when you don't necessarily know where it's going to lead. You never know. So, um, anyway, I worked at Chanel in marketing. I had a business degree, and a door opened that led me to have an opportunity to do modeling at 26. And I did that. I left a steady job. I knew I didn't want to be a model, but I knew that the office job wasn't really lighting me up, to use the
Yeah.
expression you and I use a lot together. And then that led me to take an acting class at 29. And so, talking about tough love, I right away I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I was inspired by the work that I saw. There were working actors in there, and I did a monologue. And after the monologue was over, I didn't even remember what had happened because it allowed me to just completely sort of escape and yet just be really truthful. I was like, this is the most freeing thing I have ever done in my life. I love this. Oh my gosh. And I'm good at it. And then, we had scene work. And so I was getting up to do my first scene in
Hold on,
theater.
pause.
Yes.
Sorry, hold that thought because I want to hear everything about the story you're about to tell. But what is that like when you realize that you're really good at something that wasn't even in your sphere at that point in your life? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Isn't that wild?
Yes, but I think that wasn't the main feel. The main feeling was like, oh, this feels like I'm connecting to something deep inside of me.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and for many years, I've just pushed back a lot of stuff. And I'm in my 20s. I'm not sure who I am. I feel like I'm wearing, 5 different masks depending on who I'm with. And this was a way to express myself. The light, the dark. It was
Love
exhilarating.
it.
Yes.
Okay, so carry on. Sorry, pick
So
up
no,
before
I
you.
love it. Raise your
Sorry.
So I'm very excited, and I get up with my scene partner, and we're probably 30 seconds in the scene. And I say to my partner, this is a line in the scene. Do you believe me? And my teacher, whose name is Sandra Lee, she was from the Actors Studio, goes, stop, stop, stop. I don't believe a word you're saying. You go back to your seat. And she sends back my scene partner to his seat. And she just completely destroyed me. And I mean, she said, I don't believe a word you're saying.
Wow.
What makes you think that you can waltz yourself up here on this stage and just become an actor? Do you even know who your character is? Where are you right now? And she started asking me, drilling me about who this character is. And then I guess as she was drilling me,
You're doing what? Like, you didn't cry.
no,
You were
I'm
just
just standing there. And when you're nervous, sometimes you can smile. And so I think I'm standing there with a little bit of a smile. And she goes, do you think what I'm telling you is funny? And I was like, no. And then she's like, well, then wipe that smile off your face. And then she goes, look at you. You can't even stand on your 2 feet. An actor needs to know how to stand. And you're going to go back to your seat, and you are not to get up until I tell you you're ready. And you're just going to learn. I mean, talk about brutal, tough love. I think so. And this is not parenting. This is our teachers, our mentors. And I think some of the greatest teachers know what their students can take or not take. Maybe somebody else would have been like, I'm out. I can't do this. I'm out. Goodbye. I'm quitting. I'm never going to go explore acting again. For me, it was like, okay, and you effing, I'm going to show you. It made me mad, but it also pushed me to learn, and it also gave me a wake up call. Like, yeah, I know nothing about this.
Yeah.
So it made me accountable. It made me work hard. It made me want to prove myself. And, years later, I still hear her voice in my head.
Did you two connect about that moment? And did it become a relationship that was really like mentor student,
well,
teacher student?
I stayed in her class for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. And
Wow.
then, she was a cheerleader for me, but then it became there was something I was like, okay, this is a little unhealthy. And it just had ran its course. And I was like, I need to go to a different teacher now. But I never after that, I don't know if she's still alive. I've looked her up and I can't find her. But I would want to say thank you.
Yeah, I love my best like boss was actually the one that was the most like it was like boot camp. It was George Michael in Washington D.C. when I did sports there. I've had great bosses. Actually, my favorite boss at ESPN was also that same way. It was no BS. It was the story I just told at our event when I got called into an office because it was like golf. I had work to do on my golf highlights, Stephanie. As I was saying, because there's just so much time to fill, and it's amazing, but it's hard. And it's funny because that was a wake up call for me because I'm like, okay, I've really got to just dial in, and there's a lot I don't know about the intricacies of the sport because it's not one that I had played, but also just, TV in itself. So I do love that sometimes the tough love is also what you just said. It's like a wake up call, and it's motivating and all the things. Like George, my boss in DC, would do things like literally the first time we were on the George Michael Sports Machine, the show that used to be on in the evening. It was like nationally syndicated, and it was his baby. We would walk out on the set from these two doors would open, and we'd walk out together. And the night I was starting, I was like ready to pee my pants. I was so nervous, but I was excited. Like I feel like I always kind of get that nervous feeling, but he knocks on the wooden separator between us. Knock, knock, knock. He's like, Zarniak, don't F it up is basically what he said. And I was like, oh my God. But that was great. It was like what I needed. And he knew that. And to your point, that also is what makes fantastic NFL coaches or coaches of whatever team it is. WNBA, college hoops, whatever, is the people that understand how to get to the players, because all players are going to be different. And it's that gift of being able to reach them and get the best out of them and not have them become shrinking violets, but like meet them where they are. That's such an underrated, I think, special talent, you know?
Yeah, and the story you just told also makes me feel as coworkers, because you were coworkers, and he's like, "Don't
Yeah.
fuck it up." There's a little humor in that. Also, I had an actor that I worked with, James Roday Rodriguez, on A Million Little Things, who's so talented. We all look up to him. And before,
And for people that watch that show, who's his character?
he plays Gary on A Million Little Things. Also, if there's any Psych fans, he.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And super funny, super talented. He's also a director. And before we'd hear action, he'd go, "All right, Szostak, make this one interesting, please." And it was like, I remember when I started working with him, I was like, is he joking? Is he, shoot? But it gave me that extra little, thing of, I'm not going to be complacent here. So in the workforce, it can be, there's a cool little dynamic that can make you, again, make your game, get you higher, or rise your game. What do you say?
Raise your game.
Raise your game. Yeah.
Elevate your game.
Yes.
Raise your game.
Yeah.
And also, I want to just ask you to share too, because talking about the acting, you have mentioned and been really open, and I have standby your workbook that you have created, Selfish, which is sort of in response to the imposter syndrome that you have talked about a little bit. And I think that is so relatable. I was literally on a call today with a group that is doing a panel talk in an event that I'm going to be at. And they were talking about imposter syndrome. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, anyway. Yeah. So when that happened for you, can you set the stage?
Yeah. I think another thing people don't tell you is when you get to the place that you've been working for so long, and you've worked hard, and finally you're there at the place, and now you land in that place, and instead of being like, yes, okay, I'm ready, you all of a sudden lose your confidence, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I am not equipped. I am not good enough. I'm going to be found out. I'm a fraud, basically. And that happened to me, so I started acting at 29, and for the first 10 years, I was just really hustling. And then after 10 years, I got a big break, and I booked my first lead role in a big studio film called Dinner for Schmucks. And I'm playing opposite Paul Rudd. You've heard this story a lot.
I love this story.
Paul Rudd, Steve.
It shocks me every time you say it. I'm like, what?
And I really just lost my confidence. And I remember my self-talk basically after most takes was, oh my gosh, that sucked. My own performance, and then I was like, oh, they're going to think it sucked. They're going to think I suck. I do suck. I don't belong here. I'm going to get fired. And I didn't have anyone to get my head out of my butt on the sidelines to say, what your mom told you. You're going to be on this set, and you're grateful that you're learning, and all this thing that could debunk this toxic self-talk. And so it impacted not only my performance, but also how I related to other people and my well-being. And that happened for about 2 years. The good thing is it led me to seek to learn tools like self-talk and a whole bunch of other tools that help not only with confidence on set, but also really gave me a whole new perspective on life and more joy and more meaning. And I'm sure all your listeners, listen to podcasts, they get nuggets of gold from people. And then you're like, oh, I love this. What so-and-so said, I'm going to remember this. And then you forget. And so I was like that. I would read books or get an aha moment, and then I'd forget. And so that led me to create a playbook, just like a football coach. You see them on the sidelines with their play sheet. They are not relying on memory to call the play. They're constantly looking at their play sheet. And so what if we could have our own personal playbook that we could look at in the morning before we get distracted by the news, before we get distracted by emails, the to-do list, all of that, we would see our playbook that reminds us of all the things that help us respond when it's, 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter of our lives.
So it almost becomes part of like a meditation.
You prep,
that you
our
can have.
prep, our
Yeah.
preparation. Yeah.
Your mental prep.
Yeah.
I think that the tough love too, that just the aspect of the prep, it's all very fascinating to me, because I think there was no one. So tell me this, like, when you started to work your way through the process for being on set and having that emotion, like, did you ever find that there was anyone that would say like, hey, great job? Or like, because I think about this all the time. It's like, when you start to do the thing, and to your point, when you make it to do the thing, sometimes people just aren't going to be like, hey, great job. Hey, because you're there for a reason. You've made it. You're there. You're doing the thing. And I think if you're someone that's grown up with a lot of like, oh, that was so good. Oh, da da, which is a blessing if you are, but it's like you can sometimes really struggle if there's just not constant like feedback or justification, right? Validation.
Yeah.
Right. So I think my question is, did you ultimately make peace with maybe not having that validation, and really it comes down to just your own confidence? Or did you find other ways to find that validation?
Well, it's very ironic. There was actually a lot of validation. Everybody was so nice and saying all the nice things. And I didn't believe a word they were saying, because I didn't believe it myself. This is also, I learned this later. I was motivated by negative reinforcement since I'm little. For some reason, that is what pushed me.
Really?
So if I had a math teacher in 6th grade who was really mean to me. I was bad at math, and I became one of the best students in math thanks to this teacher, because again, I was like, there's maybe a pattern here.
Like your acting coach.
Yeah, my acting coach, my math teacher. So, and I've always, growing up, I always was uncomfortable with compliments. If somebody paid me a compliment, I would be like, I didn't know what to say. When I did Iron Man, actually, I had to train with, to fight, and which I had never done before. And when we started training with my trainer, he said, okay, great, that's great, you got it. And I was like, do not pay me compliments. If you pay me a compliment, I'm going to prove you the next second that you're wrong and F it up. So this is something I've had to learn. But the point of the validation that you brought up, I think if we don't believe, our self-worth doesn't come from validation, whether you get it or not. Mm-hmm. Self-worth comes from you, your own self, what you believe about yourself. I didn't believe that I was good enough to be there, no matter what. That doesn't mean I wasn't, but no matter what anyone else said, it wasn't going to change that. I just didn't believe that I was good enough. And what I should have said to myself, what I learned later is, yes, that's true. I am not as talented or as experienced or as successful as Paul Rudd and Steve Carell. And that's okay. I am learning. Oh my God. I'm so grateful that I'm here.
I get to learn from them.
I get to learn from that. And you know what? Yeah. I'm going to take a risk on this stake. I'm just going to let go and play. And it's okay. I'm allowed to make mistakes. And so those are things that I learned. And don't judge yourself and don't judge others. But at the time, I didn't have the tools.
Wow. And then also the tough love you have experienced in sports on the golf course. I would love to hear, because Stephanie is a collegiate golfer, went to William and Mary where she golfed. And you have such great stories about the game of golf and about just in general, but tough love. And I would just love if you would share like one of your favorites or something that really shaped you that you still use.
Yeah, in regards to tough love. So I started playing when I was 11. And my dad taught me the game of golf. He's one of my greatest teachers on the golf course and in life. And so as far as tough love on the golf course, I think it was my first tournament. I was probably 12. And it was to get my handicap. In France, the women's handicap starts at 28. So I knew I had to break 100 to get my handicap. And he caddied for me, which he never did. And it's hole one. And I get on the green. I'm going to try to say this in a way that even if you don't golf, you understand. Everybody mini golfs. So I'm on the green, the ball, I put my putter behind the ball. I look to the hole. And as I look, my putter moves slightly and moves the ball a little bit out of the way before I putt. And so I look at the woman I'm playing with. She's also trying out to get her handicap. And she's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Just put it back where it was. And then I hear behind me, oh, no, no, no. That's a penalty stroke. And I look at my dad and I'm like, what? And he goes, you have to put the ball back where it was. I mean, it was not even an inch. And that's a penalty stroke. You cannot move the ball. And I was so angry. But it was tough love. And he taught me, not to cheat. And I think
Not to give up.
Not to give up. Yeah. Just like, yeah. And you're also in golf, you're not playing against anyone. You're playing against yourself. And it's so easy to hit a ball in the water and be like, I'll just hit another one. But
isn't that interesting about your personality that you just said that golf, you're playing against yourself and that you've told everyone that gives you tough love, like that you have, that you basically have to play against yourself. And like, it's very fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess life. I mean, that's a good way to look at life. It's kind of liberating when you stop comparing yourself and you're just like, it's me against me. It's not, at the end of the day, it's your own path and it's you against you.
So with the film coming out and everything, like are there goals that you have? I know that might sound like a silly question, but what is it that you're thinking about right now that you think you would love to see happen?
I would love to find an agent. This is a very vulnerable thing for me to say. As an actor, I currently don't have an agent, but this
is a very new development. You had one up until very recently.
Yeah. And those also are the things that you don't, that no one tells you is you might have a career of 20 plus years and a movie coming out. And yet at the same time, you don't know when your next project is going to be. And I mean, no matter what area you work in, there's all of a sudden you don't know what team you're going to be on. There's mergers and you don't know if your job is secure. And so, yeah, I would love that. That's what I hope for, is just to find the right agent and a good partnership.
To be able to move forward and just find the things that are meant to be. I totally relate to that, because what you just said about things changing too. I mean, God, man, that's the tough part too of this industry. Our industries are different, but a little bit parallel. And I mean, I've had that happen where all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, this change is happening. Uh-oh, there's the writing on that wall. That means that I might be the odd man out. And it just is what it is. It's business, but it's like, you're right. There is something about, work is great. And especially if it's meaningful work. And if it's work that doesn't feel like work, then that's the best. But it's like, work can be so tied up into your self-worth and goodness. It's like, sometimes you feel like you're cranking it. And then when there's a lull, it's like, and you're right. We could have an entirely separate podcast conversation about agents and building teams around you.
Yeah, but I think this fits like normalizing the ups and downs of our career and of our lives. And the writing on the wall, we're so quick to make an interpretation. We take an outcome or a situation. I don't have an agent. What's the writing on the wall? Oh my gosh, I'm this. I'm not even going to say it because I don't believe these things anymore. But, I could say all these things. And no, the fact is that relationship came to an end for the reasons that it did. And that's okay. And what can I do? What's in my control? That's all I'm going to focus on. And maybe I'm going to be out of a job, but I know I love acting. I'm never going to quit. And
Yep.
and even though, I just told my husband a week ago, should I stop?
You did not stop it.
I did.
You did not.
But he was like, stop it. You love it. You can't quit. So whatever. We'll see what happens.
Okay, well, wait. So what are the steps then? How do you handle that? Because you're really right. Like there is a lot of self-talk that can happen. I have this art class each week, and I found myself using it as more of a therapy session yesterday because I was like, Stephen, I just don't know. I just think I'm washed up. I just think, and and the same thing. It's like, what the heck am I talking about? Like what, right?
Yes, but make space for that. So like you're taking art. So make a self-portrait of all of that, of what, and then, because there's something interesting that when we say things and we make space for those feelings to express them, but we know we are not those feelings. So we're like, we accept those. Okay, I'm thinking all this. It's like, you use your mom talking to you when you got into the car. We can do that for ourselves. Okay, you doubtful Lindsay, I'm going to let you go now and say all the things you want to say. And then you make space for it. And usually when we let it out, usually it has its importance, or its our bigger self sees it and is like, oh, okay, you can gain perspective on it.
Something that I have realized that I am so bad at?
Right.
I really need no's. Like if I'm rejected,
Yes.
I really struggle when I don't hear from someone on the other side. Like if I would so much rather have it be like, oh, so we really liked your work, but we went in this direction.
The waiting
I'm curious how you'd in your field, it must be, I would imagine even like, I don't know, do they tell you? Like when there's something that like I will go for, and if it hasn't worked out, and I'm thinking about a recent experience where there was like, I'm not kidding, it was sort of this dream job situation. And I was like, now I know what makes me feel alive, because the prospect of getting to do more of that kind of work I was like, yes. And then at the end, it went as far as it could go. And then it ended up going to someone else. And that just is going to happen. But I was like, there's no one ever told me that, except for one person who was the person delivering the news, who was my agent. But like, I'm like, well, great, but like, why? Right? Like, so I guess maybe it kind of goes back to you're not always going to get feedback, and you're not always going to hear a reason. And I think you really, and Melvin, my husband, will be like, you just have to get comfortable with the fact that people don't like telling people things that they know they're not going to be happy about. So like, you're just not going to get that answer sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yes. I know the waiting is excruciating, but also when it gets down to two people and you go through all the loops, there is nothing you did wrong. At the end of the day it's a better fit. As an actor, it's like, oh, whatever, it fits, and it doesn't matter the reason. There's a certain level, if you get to that, if you are in the ball game, if you're in the arena, like you're doing what you need to do. And also for you, it was a discovery. You discovered like, this is my dream job. This is what I want to do.
That is very true. Yeah.
What did I learn about this?
That was a helpful thing. I was like, that is the thing that I would really be like, yes, I will. I could prioritize that. Like, because, but right. That whole concept, I was like, okay. So, but what's interesting about that is I had somehow talked myself into the fact that maybe it didn't happen. Like I was talking to my art teacher about. I'm like, I really was in the final running. And he's like, Lindsay, I know that happened. And I was like, well, like, who cares? Why am I even like, who am I talking to? I don't know. Anyway, it's such a mind warp. And I guess my point is, at this point in the game, to have that still happen, it's like really having tough love with yourself. But what you've said during this episode of grace.
Yes, I love
no negative talk. Just, I'm Lindsay, and gosh darn it, people like me.
The SNL. Yes.
Anyway, I feel like we just covered a lot of therapy talk. Anyway, I could talk to you for hours. Can you share 3 things that no one knows about you before you go?
Mhm. Yeah. I love to eat with my fingers, ribs, steak. I gnaw on a bone. I'm telling you this because it's a big people. If you know me well, you know that I clean the bone when I eat steak.
Oh.
Another thing is let's see, size 10 feet. I have huge feet.
I did not know that.
And another thing that no one knows about me is I have no rhythm. This is really embarrassing. I can carry a tune, but I had an audition once and I went to a studio and the guy was like, oh, okay, yeah, you got a good voice. And then we started recording and I was like, what's happening? I can't come in at the time I'm supposed to come in. I'm either a little late or a little early. What's happening? And he said, you got no rhythm.
He's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just
tough love. But you can't learn. I don't think you can learn rhythm.
I mean, maybe, but yeah, it might just be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. Is there anything you want to share about Soul on Fire before we say bye-bye?
Yes, please go to the movie theater. I'm so excited that it's going to be in the movie theaters. This is a family movie. It has, I didn't say it, William H. Macy and John Corbett, if you're Sex and the City fans. And
yeah, Mr. Big.
yeah,
No.
Aiden.
Yes.
Yeah. So go see Soul on Fire October 10th in the movie theaters.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. And I also, people are very excited about the resurgence of Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah, but I'm not in it. Devil Wears Prada. Why did you bring that up?
Sorry. I didn't know if things had changed. You're definitely not in it?
No, I'm definitely. So I'll tell you behind the scenes if you want to include this. I wrote to the director and I was like, if there's any, room for a little French je ne sais quoi, I'll slip on Jacqueline Follet's high heels in a second. And, but no, I think the story is, I don't know what the story is, but I'm not part of the number 2.
Their loss. Did you get a response?
Mm-mm.
No response?
I don't know if it got to him or not. I didn't send it to him personally, so it was through other people. And that you would love that, right? The no response.
But I was thinking as you said it, you were validating what I naturally in my mind would have thought is, well, you've got to write the email. You've got to just put it out there and then you've done all you can do.
Yes. And exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Soul on Fire. We can't wait. I can't wait to go watch this in the theaters and see it. And I think we might take our Girl Scout troop.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be a great idea?
Yes.
It's for kids?
Yes. Yes, it's definitely a family movie. So
I just think the whole story that people will see when they go to the theaters or they watch this movie, wherever they watch it is incredible in itself. But then just hearing your backstory with it, the connection, it is just so, so cool. I love it. I love that you're playing this role. And I can't wait to hear you talk like a Midwesterner.
You'll have to give me tough love, please, Lindsay.
I will. I love how you described it. Okay. You're the best. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
We'll have to do this again soon too.
I love hanging out with you. Thanks, Lindsay.
I love it too. Thank you. Tough love. And I felt like that was a therapy session. I really, there is so much to take from that, to think about how you currently apply tough love, who gives you tough love, what you learn from it. I just loved it. And also, if you want to connect with Stephanie, take a look at our show notes. We have everything that you need to know in there. But also, please don't forget Soul on Fire in theaters October 10th. I cannot wait to go see that in a theater and watch Steph up there on the big screen. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of Things No One Tells You. Can't wait to see you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you back here next week. Please don't forget, follow and subscribe to Things No One Tells You. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a 5-star review because That's really what helps people get more listeners. We would love to grow this community. We are so grateful that you're a part of it. See you next time.